Hello, everyone. My name is Lionel Kwanga. I'd like to welcome you all to this series of Soc Analyst Scenario Based Questions and Answers. Question number one. A user logs in from a country they have never visited, minutes after a successful login from the office. As a Soc Analyst, how do you investigate and respond? Well, as a Soc Analyst, you should start by reviewing the authentication logs in whatever tool you're using, be it Splunk or QRadar, to confirm login locations, timestamps, IP reputation, and the device details. Also, it is important to compare the activity user's historical behavior. This will help in determining if it represents an impossible travel. If you notice that this activity is suspicious, temporarily contain this account, require MFA, and escalate for further investigation. Question number two. CrowdStrike alerts that malware has been detected on a user workstation. What are your immediate steps as a SOC analyst? Well, the first step should be isolating this system from the whole network to prevent lateral movement. Also, you proceed by analyzing how this malware entered the system. Then you check the process tree, make sure credentials were not compromised. Question number three. A user reports clicking a suspicious email but says nothing happened. How do you handle this incident? Well, in this case, you should treat it as a phishing email. You analyze the email headers, the sender reputation, and embedded URLs. Also, since the user clicked on this email, review endpoint activity in CrowdStrike to check for payload execution and command and control communication. Question number five, or number four. Splunk detects multiple failed login attempts followed by a successful login. How do you respond? I will review the login patterns, source IPs, and timing to determine whether this was an error or a brute force attempt. If you notice that this behavior was malicious, the first step is to contain this account, reset user credentials, and further investigate. Question number five. QRadar alerts an unusual outbound network traffic to an unfamiliar external IP. What is your approach? I will start by tracing the traffic's origin, the originating system of the traffic, and analyze its destination IP reputation. Next, if I notice that this traffic is malicious, I will block it at the network level and investigate the endpoint for compromise using EDR telemetry. Question. A SOC alert indicates possible ransomware activity on the file server. What actions do you take? First step is to immediately isolate this server to prevent spread. Proceed by accessing encryption activity. Determine the ransomware variant and see if there are any decryption keys. Also coordinate recovery using backups while following incident response protocols. Question. A system shows repeated malware reinfections even after cleanup. How do you resolve this? I will simply investigate for persistent mechanisms such as scheduled tasks or registry changes. Question. A large amount of data is being transferred outside the network. How do you investigate this? First, I analyze network traffic using Wireshark or any other tool available to identify the data type and destination. If I confirm exfiltration, I block this data and investigate the affected systems. Question. A user account shows activity during unusual hours. How do you determine if this is malicious? First, I review login sources, commands executed, and the user's historical behavior. If this activity deviates significantly, I treat it as potential compromise. Question. Splunk detects suspicious scheduled tasks on the server. How do you investigate? First, I analyze the purpose of this task, the execution timing, and the creator. If found malicious, I will remove it and investigate how access was gained in the first place. Question. A user copies a large volume of files to removable media. How do you respond? Review file access logs and confirm whether this activity is legitimate. If suspicious, escalate following insider threat procedures or playbook. Question. You observe multiple failed login attempts across many accounts using the same password. What does this indicate and how do you respond? This pattern clearly indicates a password spraying attack. I will proceed to block the source IPs, monitor for successful attempts, and force a password reset on any affected accounts. Also, I will review authentication logs to confirm the scope and timing. Enforce MFA. Question. An endpoint alert shows malware execution on a user's workstation. What are your immediate steps? I will isolate this device immediately to prevent command and control communication or lateral movement. I also identify the malware type. Then I'll proceed to check for persistence mechanisms and review user activity before this infection. After remediation, I validate no credentials were stolen and determine whether this incident originated from a phishing download or removable media.